I'm going to talk to you today about one of the main concerns a lot of my clients have, and it's something that you've probably asked yourself several times, as something you've been worried about in the past. How can I achieve my athletic and fitness goals when I'm so damn busy? I get it, life is busy for most people, and spending 8 to 10 hours in the gym is fine for some people, but for most people they're not going to be able to commit to that time. If you're a busy parent, an athlete, a busy professional, or you have anything that restricts your time in life, then you need to know how to get the results you want in less time. If that's you, then this video is for you, because I'm going to explain to you how to construct a program that allows you to do this and take you through exactly how to build that program to become stronger, more athletic, and hit your fitness goals in half of that 8 to 10 hours. So let's dive into this then. How to get more results in less time. So first, let's address the elephant in the room. We have been drilled into on social media, YouTube, through podcasts, that simply working more and working harder is the way to do this and is the way to achieve all our results. But we've been lied to. And this whole David Goggins, who's going to carry the boats type thing, is great if we are prepping for an Ironman or if we're trying to get through the last few miles of a marathon. But to get sustainable results over a long period of time, to stay athletic, to stay strong, and to hit our fitness goals, this is a surefire way to exhaustion and mental exhaustion. Instead, let's look to someone who, in my opinion, had a brilliant understanding of physical preparation, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said, "It's not the daily increase, but the daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." So if you're getting out of bed at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning to ice bath, to go in an infrared sauna, to journal, meditate, whatever else it might be, and you're getting these marginal gains from that, but then you're absolutely knackered and your training is crap because you've got up so early and because your recovery is so poor, you've done yourself a disservice. You've gone backwards, you haven't improved. So we need to try and cut away all of the fluff, cut away the unessential, cut away what is not going to help the boat move faster, what is not going to move us towards our fitness goal. Now, I've worked with athletes for nearly 15 years, and one of the key things about the best athletes that I've seen that I've worked with is the best athletes don't do more, they just train smarter. And what they absolutely do not do is they don't use bro splits, they don't lift 6 days a week, and they don't train like a bodybuilder, because that is not their goal, and the goal is not to step on stage. Yet for some reason, I'm constantly meeting people who have no intention of ever competing in bodybuilding, who don't actually have really high aesthetic goals, but they're following 6-day splits that are based around muscle groups and bodybuilding. And that is not efficient, it's not effective, it's not a time-friendly way of training. So what we need to do is find a better way, and that's what I'm going to teach you in this video, because creating a robust and efficient plan is not as hard as you think. It just takes the right knowledge and the right know-how, and hopefully that's what I'm going to give you in this video. Now for this video, I'm going to take you through how to construct a plan that features 3 gym sessions a week. But to be honest, this can be applied to whether you want to do 2 sessions, whether you want to do 4 sessions. There'd need to be some slight adjustments, but hopefully you'll see how it can be adapted. And the sessions I'm going to take you through will be 3 full body sessions. Now the reason I'm going to do it that way is because we're going to look at movements as opposed to muscle groups as being the primary way of prescribing our exercises. Now, I'm not necessarily going to give you all the specific exercises because I want you to be able to do that for your situation and for your equipment and the gym that you've got access to. But at the end of this, hopefully you'll be able to construct yourself a training split for a week, know what sets and reps to do, know what exercises should be included, and know what intensity to work at. So let's bring up the iPad screen. And the first thing we need to do is just identify what the key movements that we're going to be hitting are as our primary lifts, and also what are the secondary options that we can then construct around that to get a little bit more into our program. So the key movements, and these are probably all movements that you have heard of, are going to be the squat, a vertical and horizontal push, a vertical and horizontal pull, and a hinge. Now, if you're unsure of what a hinge movement is, it's essentially a deadlift or an RDL type movement where we've got this closing and opening of the hip joint. So they're our key movements, and what they're going to do is form the main lifts of our session. So typically the first 4 exercises are going to come from these categories. We then are going to put in some secondary options. Now, I've said we're going to write this program from movements, that's still the case, but in our secondary options, this might be where we hit our muscle specific exercises. So if your goal is hypertrophy, so the gaining of muscle mass, then we're going to need some muscle specific exercise in where we isolate those muscle groups. We're also going to include in here our core work, our rotation exercises, and then also any sort of injury specific exercises that you might need to do as an individual, or if you play a sport that has a specific injury risk, then you may do what we call prehab exercises within this part of the program as well. So I'm going to call these injury specifics. And this way we can form our program from main movements, which means we're going to hit all of the key muscle groups and movements, typically 2 to 3 times per week if we're doing our 3 session split. And then we're going to just dot these extra exercises throughout all 3 sessions, which then allows us to hit all of the other key areas within that program as well. So if I bring this up, so like I said, we're going to do 3 sessions as a full body split. So session 1, session 2, and session 3. Now, if, for example, you had to train on consecutive days, you're not going to want to do full body 2 days on the bounce. So if that was the case, you might just do 1 full body and then 1 upper and 1 lower. I have used push-pull legs in the past, and it is a program that can work, but for me, if we're going to do that on 3 sessions, you're only going to hit key movements and muscle groups once, and that's going to delay your progress towards your fitness goal. For me, with full body sessions, and full body sessions have gone a little bit out of fashion, I think, because they just tend to be a little bit more demanding. But for me, in terms of a busy person who wants to get my training done and hit my goals quickly, they are an absolute godsend. And I'd really advise you to consider going on to them if you're not already. So for today, I'm just going to talk you through full body sessions, but if you want to discuss upper, lower splits, then just drop me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to do that with you for free. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our main movements in. So in session 1, we might have our squat and we might have our vertical pull. We'll then want to hit a hinge in one of the other sessions, as well as our horizontal push. So that's going to be like a bench press, something like that. And then session 3, I would actually put in a unilateral lower body as a main. So particularly if you're doing any running or any sort of exercise around that, or playing a sport, unilateral work is going to be really important for you. So I'd put that in as a main lift as well. And then we'll probably put a horizontal pull in here as well, which is going to be something like a rowing type movement. Now these are our main lifts. And for these lifts, we want to spend probably the most time. So the most volume is going to be dedicated. So these are our main lifts. Now, these can be done as separate exercises, so as a 1 or a 2, so you do your sets, your 3 or 4 sets on squat, and then go and set up your vertical pull. But if you're in a gym that allows you to do supersets, then that's going to help you get through the session a little bit quicker, a little bit more efficiency. So these might be an A1 and an A2, and they're done back to back. So that's just a way you can do it. To be honest, most of these sessions should take about 40 to 45 minutes. They can be adapted to be shorter, they can be adapted to be a little bit longer. If you're more of an experienced lifter and you're going really heavy on these main lifts, you might need a little bit more rest time. So you might just need to take that into account when you're constructing your session. But we'll talk about sets, reps and rest times in a little while. So our next exercise, we're going to still take from these main movement categories. We're just going to dot around a few of the ones that either we haven't hit yet or we want to hit twice within a week. So we've got our vertical pull. We might have a second horizontal press in this session, and then we might have a lower body assistance. So this might be hitting something specific like our quads or hamstrings, so it might be like a leg extension. It could be a secondary exercise that's going to help our squat. So if we've got any lower back issues, might do a back extension. If we want to just hit pure leg strength again, it might be a leg press, but a leg press will probably come more in this session here because we've got the hinge movement. We could then do a more quad dominant movement like a leg press to go with that. We'd also probably have a secondary horizontal pull in here, and then a vertical push in here. And we're only hitting vertical push once, but to be honest, when it comes to pressing exercises, if you're doing something like an incline bench press here, for example, then we're probably going to be able to hit a lot of the muscle groups in a secondary way that we would use in a vertical push. So we don't necessarily need that in there twice. So this will also be a lower body assistance. And again, we can do these either as individual exercises or they can be supersetted together. We're then going to pick 3 exercises for our final set. And this can be done as a triset, so a C1, C2, C3. It can be done as a C1, a C2, and then a D1. So you do one superset with an individual exercise after, or they can be done separately. But these tend to be a little bit less demanding in terms of nervous system fatigue. So they're not going to use as much weight, or they're going to use a smaller movement that isn't quite as demanding. So they can generally be done a little bit quicker with a little bit less rest time in between. So for example, we might therefore, if we're taking from here, so if our goal might be hypertrophy, so we're going to dot some arm work and shoulder work throughout this program. So we might hit biceps, triceps, and then maybe some shoulder accessories like lateral raises, something like that, to just get a little bit of growth. We don't want to make one of these for a lower body. So if we haven't hit quads or hamstrings before, then we might have a quad or hamstring, and I mean as an isolation rather. Obviously they're going to be in the main movement, but as an isolation. So we might have a quad hamstring isolation exercise there. We might have the same here, just so we're hitting the main muscle groups more than once. And we might just have a lower body sort of range of movement exercise. So I like to use something shown on the screen now called a landmine lateral sway. So just to hit sort of our adductors, our abduction work, get some range of movement into our hips to keep us moving well. I mentioned back extensions before, that could also be one of these exercises, but it's just sort of a lower body accessory that covers one of the areas that isn't hit in the other key movements. And in your gym, this might be a favourite machine you've got. You might want to just get some volume in, because I'll talk through sets and reps in a second, but you might just want a high volume exercise for the lower body, so something like a hack squat might go well there. I'm not married to exercises. I don't say you have to do a certain type of exercise, but so there is freedom within this program. You can construct it yourself. We then might have a core exercise here, an injury specific exercise here. So for example, if you're a rugby player, for example, you might have some neck strength work in here. So an injury risk exercise where you're going to hit something that is key to sport, or if you've already got an injury, then you can dot your rehab exercises throughout the program as well. And then we might just hit another core exercise here, something like a rotation. And then straight away, you've actually constructed yourself a program which each session only has 7 exercises. It's going to take you around 40 to 45 minutes, but it hits pretty much everything we want to hit, usually at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week. And if you don't get stronger on this or get working towards your fitness goals, then we'd have to look at sort of nutrition, but it's probably something to do with the intensity that you're working at. Because this is the training framework that I use in the Athletic Parent Training Blueprint, as well as with a lot of athletes that I work with, a little bit more flexible with athletes, but this has got a lot of good results for me over the years, and it's what I use in my own training at the moment as well. So really there you've got sort of what you need to be able to go and start your own training program in this area. Now, I haven't spoken anything about conditioning or cardiovascular exercise yet, and what I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing 3 sessions similar to this, but also I'm doing 2 runs a week, because I can just get out, I can do 30 to 40 minutes without having to go to the gym, without having to prep anything. I can just get out and go for it. If you're not doing that, you may want to just take a little bit of time to add 10 minutes onto your session and add in a finisher here. Now, a finisher for me is not walking on a treadmill on an incline. for 10 minutes, because that is just purely calorie burning. And if that's your goal, fair enough. But for me, that isn't doing justice to your cardiovascular system. If you're going to do a 10-minute conditioning workout, it needs to be intense. So for example, the other day I did on the watt bike, I did 10-second sprints with 20 seconds of coasting in between, and I did that for 20 reps. So it's a 6-minute workout, and it was intense. Heart rate hit into the 190s. So make sure if you do it that way, then it's intense. Something I forgot to mention earlier, warm-ups. Now, I used to follow sort of full ramp protocol warm-ups where you raise the heart rate, activate the key muscles, mobilise, and then do what we call potentiation. It would take about 15 to 20 minutes a session. I've moved away from that a lot in recent years because we don't need to do a full warm-up every single session. What I would do now is pick 2 or 3 mobility exercises. I'd pick a plyo primer, a plyometric primer, particularly because my goal is to maintain my athleticism. I want to still be explosive and fast. So I'm going to just put 1 plyometric exercise at the start of each session, just for 2 sets of 5 reps, and it's going to play in with that movement that we're doing first. So for example, I've got a squat in that first session, I might do a box jump or a drop jump. I've got a hinge in this session, I might do a broad jump. Both are just 2 sets of 5 reps, just to fire up the nervous system and prime the movement that I'm going to do. So you only need 5 to 10 minutes to warm up. I'd then just do a couple of lighter sets on the exercise I'm doing and then go into my working sets. So you don't need to spend too much time worrying about your warm-up. Now we just do need to talk about, just to bring the slides back up, sets, reps and intensity. Now I use RPE, which stands for rating of perceived exertion, which is the chart you can see on the screen now. And I team that with what we call reps in reserve, which is basically how many reps you can do on top of where you finish. So, sorry, let me explain that again. Which is basically how many reps you would be able to do with a given weight at the end of the set. So you might do a set of 8 reps and think I've got 1 to 2 more reps in the tank there. And that can translate to a number in RPE. So I would use this to prescribe your intensity. And because we're training 3 times a week and we're not doing a huge amount of exercise in our sessions, we want that intensity to be quite high. And to be honest, for most exercise, we're not going to be below a 7 out of 10. So we're going to be close to this 3, 2, 1 reps in reserve, sometimes even higher. Unless you're doing a 3 rep max, 2 rep max type set, you're probably not going to go to 10 out of 10. Certainly not every week, you'll be way too fatigued to do that. But we're probably going to be pushing the 7, 8 and 9 range. And if I just go back to the session, this affects the reps that we're going to prescribe for each exercise. So for our main lifts here, we're probably going to look at 4 to 6 reps because they're going to be our main strength builders. Our assistants then, we're going to go 5 to 8 because these are still heavy exercises, but we're not going to push as close to that 9 out of 10 RPE. For this one, I'd go 8 or 9 out of 10. For this one, I'd be more like 7 or 8, so a little bit less. And then our assistants exercises, I prefer to go higher reps. I know there's some people who are swearing off high rep work, but I'd go 8 to 12 reps. And I would do these at about a 7 out of 10. What I might throw in every so often is what's called an AMRAP set. So I might pick a key lift. I've gone off the screen now, but you can see. I might pick a key lift where on the final set I'll do as many reps as I can with the weight I've been using. And that's a good progress indicator. It tells me what I could do with that lift and that weight, and just allows me to hit failure on an exercise every so often. I'm not going to hit failure on a lot of these because it's a little bit more risky to do so. Bicep curl, however, no problem hitting failure on that. Just throw in a set where you do as many reps as you can. And if you hit, so say you prescribed 8 reps, but you hit 13, we know we need to increase that weight on that exercise. So just something to consider is that strength and size are not always the same. Strength is going to be in the lower rep range with a higher weight, size slightly higher reps, because we want more mechanical tension, more metabolic stress to develop muscle growth. But if you're going to go into the super high rep ranges, like you're above 12 or 15 reps, then you're going to need a good justification to do that, because yes, size can be built at those rep ranges, but it's generally quite fatiguing and quite inefficient to do so. And then we also just want to make sure that there is an element of progressive overload in all of our programs. So each week we should be aiming to either increase the weight or slightly increase the reps. So say, for example, in week 1 we did 4 sets of 4 reps on our main lift. We might then want to go and try and hit a couple of sets of 5 reps. Equally, we may just want to increase the weight slightly. You're Probably not going to be able to do it every week because there will be dips in your progress. And in fact, at the start of a training program, you usually get a little bit of a decrease in performance before we then adapt and get an increase. But we want to aim for after 6 weeks, we want to be higher than we were at the start of the program, obviously. And then free weights or machines, why choose one? I hate this debate. I hate that people criticize one just because they've got a favorite for the other. For me personally, for my main lifts, I prefer free weights. You know, I like my heavy back squats. I think they're an excellent exercise. I like bench press. Equally, I can see the value of using a machine. If you're not comfortable back squatting, hack squats are a brilliant alternative. So don't choose one. Just see them all as being tools in your toolbox. And actually the exercise you prefer, if that helps you stick to the program better, the best training program is the one you're going to stick to. So go ahead and get those exercises in that program. Great, so hopefully that video has been helpful for you and you're now able to construct your training plan. There's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour, so if you do want more support with that, just hit my Instagram link below in the description of this video, drop me a message and I'm more than happy to help you figure out what your training program needs to look like. Thank you for watching, make sure you hit subscribe and hit like, and I'll see you on the next one.